Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to be exploring the 6 stages to AI-ready contact center quality, the roadmap for 2026. The session is brought to you by Salesforce and Leaptree and produced by SmartBrief. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's webinar. Every CX leader feels the strain. More interactions, higher expectations, and QA processes that simply don't scale. The truth, your quality program's maturity, not your team size, is what determines performance. Today, we have Leaptree's CEO joining us for an unfiltered walkthrough of the 6 stages of customer experience quality assurance maturity, a roadmap that shows exactly why traditional QA is breaking, where teams get stuck, and what the world's most advanced operations are doing now to prepare for an AI-driven future. He's going to be shedding light on how organizations evolve from messy, spreadsheet-bound QA to fully assisted AI, where sentiment, quality signals, and risk indicators surface automatically, and evaluators stop firefighting and start driving outcomes. As you can tell, we've got a lot to cover today, and it's going to be a very exciting and valuable conversation. And frankly, I cannot wait to get started. So let's go over just a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get our speaker out here with us. All right. As I mentioned, my name is Mackenzie. I've already seen some hellos, some highs, some introductions coming through in the chat tab in the upper right-hand side of the console. But if you're just joining us, just getting yourself orientated, no worries. We'd love to get a quick hi, hello, see where you're tuning in from there in the chat tab as well. So Eric, we've got in from Chicago. Nancy, good afternoon to you as well. Saeed, hello. Don, Lewis, hello, hello. Landon Golden, welcome everybody. Monica from New Jersey. We've got, who's that from the UK? Luke, welcome Luke. Springfield, Illinois, San Francisco, Ken coming in from Canada, Tennessee. All right, quite a nice mixed bag, great mixed audience here. Keep those highs, hellos coming in throughout this chat. Also, if you have any comments, ideas, feedback, personal anecdotes, the moments of, hey, that's exactly how I feel, or that's happened to me, or I have experience with that, we'd love to get your feedback in the chat, see how you guys are responding to this information as well. Now, the chat tab is also the perfect place to let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Obviously, we hope that isn't the case, but if you do have any issues, a quick browser refresh is usually a way to fix any issues with video, slide, audio, not loading, not syncing. But if you're having persistent issues, let us know in the chat tab. Myself and Riley, who's our webinar coordinator, running things smoothly here in the background, we'll be here to help and troubleshoot with you. Now, if you hover over your viewport, there are closed captions that you can enable, AI generated in multiple languages if you want to toggle those on. There's also a light mode if you're traveling on mobile, limited bandwidth, you can play with that. But beyond that, a couple other features to look at is the Q&A tab. Now, the Q&A tab is where we want you to put your questions, so we can keep an eye on those. We are going to be having a dedicated Q&A segment during today's session, but we are going to be fielding some questions along the way. So don't feel like you need to wait till the end. You can absolutely throw those in the Q&A tab starting now, and we'll do our best to address as many of those as possible during today's session. Finally, we've got the Docs tab as well. And in the Docs tab, you've got some great follow-ups from Leaptree. You've actually got a slide deck, which you're going to be seeing in a minute, that is giving a step-by-step overview of the 6-stage model for CX, that maturity model that I referenced. So feel free to click that, save it. You're probably going to want to reference back to that because it is really valuable. And then finally, if you guys want to book a demo, you can check out what is under the hood, try it for yourselves. I know I love to kind of poke around, and that's how I learn best. So if you're in that boat, or if you really want to see how what you're about to see today will work for you, well, you can check that out. But we'll bring attention to that later as well. Final bit of fun, we do have a $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs. I'm going to be drawing the winner of that at the end of today's session. You do need to be live and present on the session to qualify for the prize, and the full prize terms and conditions are also in the Docs tab there. All right, and with that, I'm excited to introduce you all to Neil Young, who is the CEO of Leaptree. He's going to be joining me on stage here in a second. I do want to give you a quick reminder that I'm going to be hanging out on stage, popping up on stage, and giving some follow-up questions to Neil as he presents, both from my point of view, but as well some audience questions from you as they come in. So feel free to get those in, and then we're going to be holding that time for the Q&A at the end as well. So with that, let's get Neil up here with me, shall we? All right, Neil, super excited to have you here today and pick your brain, learn from you, chat with you. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks, Mackenzie. Good to see you again. Yeah, looking forward to going through today's topic. We talk about the maturity model here. I like going through this with our clients. We've updated this for 2026. So let me move forward, bring you through the 6 stages to AI ready contact center quality, the roadmap for 2026. So when we talk about the roadmap, we look at 6 stages when we speak with our customers, prospects, and how they can bring themselves from what we call unstructured assessments through to assisted AI and the journey that may take. And that can take many different roads. We provide an example road here, an example maturity model. Some of our customers follow different routes to get to nirvana, which is AI enabled, AI powered. But let me start with unstructured. What does unstructured assessments look like? And just before I go there, I should say level 0 would really be a customer may have a call center and they do not have quality assurance in place at all, which does still exist today. It may be too small for it or whatever that reason may be. But level 1 is where they have a quality assurance model in place. So let me move to what that looks like. When we speak to customers, they have manual spreadsheets in place, whatever that might be that Google Sheets, Excel, whatever that is. They start speaking to us when the challenge increases. Typically, that challenge is increasing due to volumes, more agents in the business, more assessment coverage is required. Errors are increasing. Spreadsheets are being pulled together, are being distributed across. So let's just say it's just going to team leaders in the call center. So they're being distributed out. They're being asked to fill out those information, the assessments in a spreadsheet against a certain type of interaction. They may have to pick that interaction themselves from one of their team. You can build up unconscious bias with all of that. So you may know people that you're assessing. You really probably don't want that. You want to be able to review a call, provide unconscious bias, score that appropriately. Now, when you think about it, just take 5, 6 team leads, then bring it up to maybe 10 team leads. You distribute those spreadsheets, you bring it back. You do that every week, and at the end of every month, you want to pull together reporting. This is where the big burden comes into play. Now, and then how do the agents see, how are you providing feedback to agents? Are you producing more spreadsheets and more manual reports to provide that back? And it's all, I couldn't even call this near time. So these are running on typically monthly cycles, providing feedback, summarizing to the agents. And it's incredibly hard to scale. So, organizations are hitting maybe 50, 60 agents, maybe a little bit more, and then coming to us could be a bigger scenario. But that's the unstructured assessment view of the world.
And Neil, are you finding with that, like, not only is it that it's very manual and difficult to get that data all put together, but then are people just making decisions off old data by the time they actually go through that process?
Absolutely, yeah. Your decision points are, some people want to change, or in more advanced call centers, they want to make movements around teams. Could be on a weekly, on a daily basis, depending on demand, depending on that time of year. The numbers coming from your quality program help inform that. But if you're only able to produce those out every month, maybe in a really busy environment, that's not really helping decision making at all. So yeah, great point. And then we move into structured assessment, which is into a digital landscape, and I say digital, like a specialized CXQA software, such as Leaptree Optimize. Data sampling engine is the big piece then that provides as well. That's the core of it. So how you configure, okay, I want you to find me all the calls that came in complaints in the last week, and I want to give me 10% of those, and I want to assess 10% of them. And I may want to spread that evenly across the agents in the queue, and all sorts of kind of permutations you can put in there, but it's taking away your unconscious bias or anything like that. You can configure those rules to make sure that somebody that's a team lead of one area cannot assess their own area, for example. You can configure all those rules, and that could be complemented by a QA team as well. So you got the software, you have the data sampling, now your reporting is seamless. Yeah, back to your point, Mackenzie, I want to review on the hour, I want to review near time, real time on the data and see where the trends are and how we're performing in the call center in certain areas. I can see all of this on the quality instantaneously through the system. Very scalable. We have customers that have thousands, up to 10,000 agents through our technology with, agent evaluators that can be in the, 100 plus evaluators. So this creates incredibly scalable model as the business scales. And then they start using it for different areas. So they start looking at, well, what about document QA? As in, what about documents that we pass out to customers? How are we assessing those? So they start using it for other elements, not just the standard omni-channel phone, email, web chat. They start looking at other areas of the business where you can use the QA enablement. Could be a sales interaction, sales demos. All that kind of good stuff can then be added into that QA process. So it starts becoming a broader rollout, broader, how would you say, applicability of quality assurance in the business. And then that's driving increased coverage. So by rolling into tech, okay, I could have been at 1 or 2% of all of the interactions every month I'm assessing. Now I'm assessing 5%, 4%. We're getting really good data sample every week from the technology. Agent visibility, real time, and it depends how you want to communicate this back, but give them an app, show them the details, show them the data, show them how they're performing, provide them with tasks. And the really good thing about this in the world, 2026 is the year when enterprise and AI come together and start delivering real tangible value. This provides a real foundation for AI. So bringing in the structured assessments into the CX QA software, that's a great foundation for moving to AI in the future.
So Neil, I have a question. If so let's say you're sampling that 5% of those interactions. Is that enough? Is there a case in which people should be doing 100%, 50%, and is that feasible? Obviously there's a high volume of calls. So
yeah, so let's take 5% as an ideal scenario when using technology. So the core quality assurance technology without AI, 5% should be quite a realistic goal. Now, depending on the volumes, you could have people dealing with 100 plus thousand interactions per month. So, that's quite a volume to spread across your evaluation team, whether that's, how that's comprised of. But that's still quite a lot of assessments. So depending on the size, the amount, that 2.5 to 5% interactions through this technology, it's quite achievable and is a good data sampling set. But AI is what brings you to that 50%, 60%. So we're going to cover that in a little while, but it's a great, how do you increase that coverage? It's a big question on people's lips last year. How do I get my coverage? And the only tangible way is to use AI to get there. So the example I have here is the data sampling engine, just a small subset of what we're looking at here. Maybe quite hard to see the detail here, but what we're looking at is complaint cases in the last week and how we can figure out, are they closed cases? Are they open cases? Are they both? Where do I find that? What object do I look at that in Salesforce? And all the conditions that you can add around it. So this is where you build up your conditions of what you want to find, your data sample, and then how you spread them out. There's more detail behind all of this. And then that's what starts issuing out the digital scorecards to the evaluators for assessment. So it's very seamless once you set up data sampling. Again, some of our customers could have 50 plus different types of data sampling scorecard schedules, as we call them, set up, and it works incredibly well. And then the agent visibility, what do they see back? So Nessa here is got an average of just over 70%, which is the business standard. Everybody should be 70% or higher. That's their target for the quarter. They've got they can see their scorecards by all the different assessment types. They can see their trend lines. So if you see a poor trend line from somebody joining the business at the start, you're giving them the enablement to see how they're performing. Okay, my quality's not so good at the moment. I need to do better here. I've been assigned training tasks. I'm going to take on board that training. I'm going to improve my trend lines. I think that's really important, that self-empowerment to how can I do better? Give them the tools, the visibility, and let them see it early. Let them see it as soon as they can. And the centralized reporting we talked about at the very start, unstructured assessments in spreadsheets. Now we centralize it. But the other benefit here, well, let's say your data's in Salesforce, you have your QA software in Salesforce. Now I want my CSAT score, how we're scoring on these customers and how we're rating these customers for quality and the feedback we're getting. I can link in surveys into this. So I can start bringing my customer data in line with my quality assurance data and centralize the reporting all into one area. That's incredibly important and saves a ton of time, a huge amount of time, and visibility and trend lines and spotting where the challenges are. And then, simple scenario here of a case being reviewed that has a document for submission for membership. It's packaged into the document, it's passed for approval. So this could be a scenario whereby you may have junior employees that need to approve documentation before it goes back out to a customer. And you can also, it's back to that point, you can also use the QA technology to run assessments on this. Pass or fail the documents. If you pass them, what do they do? Do they do well? Give them the detailed feedback, not just yes or no. So bring that in, weave that into your quality processes. Really helps. So then we talk about proactive. So we've established the baseline technology. And then we talk about proactively developing the agents in terms of coaching and all those elements where we can help improve them from this. Now, I talked about unconscious bias earlier on, but then how do you identify the trends then for those agents if you don't know them well enough where they're going wrong with their challenges? So let's talk about that. So in terms of coaching, just standard coaching tasks. So I'm running an assessment. At the end of the assessment, I realize they have a gap. I'm going to create a coaching task. I can send that to their line manager, or depending on the organization, I may be allowed to send it directly to that agent, all depending. So we deal with all of those kind of good things. But this piece there is, just standard training tasks. I've identified you have a challenge with active listening skills. I think you should take this piece of knowledge base or this learning management content that you need to work through, and I can assign that. So very straightforward, one scenario. I've identified something. I think you need to do this. Now you can move into, and you can see there's a task assigned there with into my trailhead, for example. Now I want to identify trends. So what I'm seeing here is there's a fault line, something it's dropped down below a certain value. Why did we drop off at that juncture? And then what scorecards were related to that, and what agents, more importantly, were related to that, and what scores did they achieve there? So now I'm trying to identify areas in the process, and I've gone into one section in a scorecard assessment that has 5 different sections. So I want to drill down. I can drill down into the data because it's all within Salesforce. For example, in this scenario, I can drill into the data. I can see the challenges. I can identify the problem areas. And you know what? I'm going to bring these 3-4 people together into a workshop, talk them through. Do a refresher course on something, for example. So, a nice way to look at trends across the board that you may not see because, they don't work directly for you, but you could be the learning manager for the call center that wants to identify these issues, these trends, present out a training course, and actually invite certain people you think should attend and say, look, I think this would really help. So this will help you understand that kind of broader view of it. Now, if we bring those 2 things together, so we think of tasks and we think of trends, and we have this feature, which is recommended learning actions. And what this is doing is presenting to the evaluator, who let's assume that they do not know the agent or what their strengths and weaknesses are. It presents a trend. So it sees that and only presents the trend where there's an issue. So we might say, look, anything lower than 50% or 60%, we need to flag up. And let's identify that trend over the last 3 assessments. And if they continue this low trend for this area over the last 3 assessments, then flag up the training course to the evaluator. So it's the first piece is very ad hoc, and this is actually identifying a trend, presenting it to an evaluator and saying they need training here on this. So now it's a recommendation to the evaluator, but it provides a really good accurate detail. You can also use this information to speak to an agent and say, look, this is an area where you have a gap, and I think you should do this. And they'll actually be quite receptive when they see a trend line as opposed to a one-off hit. So it works really well. It's baked into our product. In fact, great feedback there. So, and you can join that in with your LMS, Confluence documents. So whatever, where it's anything that's URL based that you can, grab a link and drop it in and assign a task. You can use the tech to do that.
And Neil, are those kind of all, you said, baked into the product, but can trainers or educators say like, oh, this is a different thing I want to watch for, or is that customizable, or is there kind of like an industry set that tends to be what everyone needs?
Yeah, it's customizable based on the interaction type. So if you could
Okay.
be assessing somebody in the standard support desk, which could be very different to the VIP desk, which could be very different to the complaints desk. So if you
Got it.
think of those three different scenarios, there are three different types of scorecard assessments. And for each of those, typically this comes down to the training manager uh, and or the QA manager, where they're a person responsible for rolling out these programs and continuously improving, that they decide, okay, for this area, for know your customer in support, then they should know this piece. They should know this piece of know your customer skills. So they should know this detail. In complaints, in terms of complaint resolution, there's a course that they should know for this. So they will know how to tailor that by each different interaction for their company, and that's how they connect their learning management systems, the knowledge-based systems to the quality assurance program. So let's use their knowledge that they've built up to apply it into the tech. That's the key piece. Yeah, great. And then we talk about as a next stage then, and there can be some of our customers do calibration, are already doing calibration, and they could be doing that in an unstructured assessment world. So that's back to how people move and how they prioritize their own roadmap. But we'll move to motivate and reward here from an agent perspective. So we're thinking of our agents, how we motivate them. Do we have targets for the CX for the call center? But absolutely. What are we trying to achieve? Is it CSAT scores? Are we thinking actually of, we know quite a few of our clients have quarterly targets with their teams on their quality assurance scores. So if all the team gets over 70% in their quality assurance scores, then X bonus is applied. So whatever those CX targets are applicable for the business, and how do you manage that? Maybe you just have gamification, but there's also consideration for bonuses that I just mentioned. And upsells is very interesting. So in the Salesforce 6th edition of the State of Service report, they surveyed 5,500 organizations across the globe. 68% of call center staff were trained up on upsells. So when you think of that, so they're trained on upsells, now how do you execute on that and how do you incentivize? So I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So the first piece I just want to cover is gamification. So let's say we've got monthly awards, and these are just, we got silver, bronze, gold. Somebody may use these, it's just recognition. You may not tie anything tangible to that apart from recognition. They may use that for their review process at the end of year. By the way, I got 3 gold stars last year. I think I'm a good valued member. My average score is 82.6%. It all helps drive the quality of the business. Yep. So we find our customers really like this, adopt to it, gamification, really important. Works incredibly well and very useful and customized again by the different assessments that you have in the business. And you may say, look, I actually only want to implement it for these types of assessments versus these. That's fine, no problem. Or for this division versus this division, I just want to keep it into this world. Works incredibly well. Again, reinforcement, keep your best people, all that kind of good stuff. And now we look at rewards. So on the bottom panel there, instead of my training tasks, which are up here anyway, I can see now I've got incentives, I've got performance bonuses, I've got, when I look in here, I'm talking about, okay, everybody over 80% is the target, everybody's, there's a bonus. You could have team bonuses, you could have individual bonuses, you could pay commission. So we think about bonuses, net promoter score, we talk about CSAT scores, quality assurance scores. So whatever way, tangible metrics that you can really articulate and define to your agents that they can look and track and try to improve. How do you reward them? So there may be some bonus pools, and that could connect to points, but there may be some bonus pools available there. But then think of upsells. Like I'm trusting the person I'm speaking to in support. I've built up a rapport with them, and they tell me I could really help if I bought this next level of broadband based on their usage. Okay, that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. Let me look at that. So you're encouraging these guys. You give them soft targets. You may not want to give them targets. You may just say, do you know what? We're going to pay X% every time you upsell, and as best as you can do. So all sorts of nice things in there, but you're adding that nice piece into their view of the world in quality assurance. So then I move on
Is
to
there,
yes.
sorry, I was just thinking, are there any sort of baked in analytics or tracking where like if you implement a new upsell program, can you look at say how much revenue's been brought in since that program was put in
Oh,
place?
yeah, fantastic. Great point. Yeah, absolutely. So it's all that data, it's all surfaced back into, and you could have that along with your, let's say, your CSAT scores, you have your bonus pool, you have your upsell, you've rolled out a new upsell program, you want to see how well that's doing, and you want that alongside your quality scores for your team, and you want to join all that into one report. That's incredibly effective. Incredibly effective. Yeah. Yeah, assessment calibration, very much, it's table stakes calibration, and it has to exist when you get to a certain level within the organization. Pretty much when you start rolling out a quality assurance program, we pretty much see, and I said earlier on, we see it in an unstructured world as well. They have calibration where they're bringing evaluators together. They're making sure there's alignment, especially in bigger teams that are assessing, 10 plus people, and they're assessing all the agents. And what you do not want to happen is that an agent gets a low score from one evaluator for how they interact and gets a high score from another. That's really what you want to avoid for the same type of how they've interacted, and they get confused. They think that they start mistrusting the system. So you're looking to, calibrate across your evaluators. What's really important is that the agents don't see this. So the agents don't get these scores. So you might take one assessment, spread that out across 10 evaluators, and then really dig into how each of those have assessed those questions. You may bring them into a meeting room or a virtual meeting. You might run through that calibration, say, okay, Tom, you said this, and Mary, you said that. Why, let's play back the call, let's listen in. And you can see all of that in the calibration workspaces. Now, you either run that on completed assessments, so you might say, look, we're going to go back to one, and everybody's going to get assigned this. And there's a way of setting all this up in the calibration workspace. Or you might want to do it for new assessments. So you have those choices. It basically runs as a separate schedule, but the agents don't see any of the results, which is important. And we should also say there is the ability to score the scorer in addition to QA calibration. So, okay, so we're doing a QA calibration workshops maybe once a month. But you know what? On every Friday, I'm going to take one assessment on evaluators that I'm actually going to assess their assessment. So you still have that option. And this is an example of a workspace, and then you're digging into the detail and back it, like I can tweak. So I'm going through here on all the questions across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different assessors, and I'm bringing them together, and I'm trying to see where there's any deviation in the scores. So I can say, okay, there's actually deviation here, Matthew. So let's discuss why your score is different to the 4 other people. And it's about learning. It's not about dragging people over through the coals, but so dig into that information. It's all surfaced up there. And again, these reports are fully customizable. So now into the final stage of the quality assurance maturity model, which a lot of people are interested in. Drum roll.
Big moment.
Yeah. So assisted AI, we still use the term assisted AI. I know there's elements of, there's predictive AI that we're using, there's generative AI, and there's autonomous AI. So even in autonomous AI, you're saying, okay, how is it still assisted when it's automatically being scored? We still think there needs guardrails. We still need people to check these things, so we really like the term assisted AI. And what is the goal of assisted AI? It's back to your very original point, Mackenzie, which is around, how do I increase my coverage? What are people looking for? Absolutely, they're looking for, how do I go from 5% to 50%? Just take that. So how do you increase CA/QA coverage with AI? So that's the number one goal. And then how can I reduce the evaluator workload over time? So I'm increasing the coverage, but I also I need to manage all of these interactions and all the effort that people are putting in here. So how can I use AI to, complement the team and reduce their workload? So you may increase the coverage and keep the workload the same, if that makes sense. And there is scenarios where AI can increase the evaluator workload. So you want other elements to reduce it. So we'll talk about that. By increasing your coverage, you're going to gain deeper insights. So by sampling 2.5%, am I missing any red flags out there? We're going to talk about that. So let's get deeper insights where the problems are. Fundamentally, we're trying to improve call center performance. That's the end goal. That's what we're trying to do, and AI can help with that. So this is an example here of an auto QA scorecard. And auto QA basically, in its essence, is that it will score based on learned models. So I go back to, say, a complaints case, which is different to a standard email support case. They're two different AI models. That's fundamental. So you don't bring all this data together, drop them into an LLM, and let it learn itself. That's not going to work. So we've worked through this in quite a lot of detail. You need an AI model for each interaction type, and that learns over time from the manual assessment. So you have to build up knowledge. It has to learn. You have to train the model. Which makes a lot of sense. You've got to train the model, and then auto QA kicks in and starts automatically answering the questions. Now, what happens thereafter? Does that go straight to an agent? Does it, if it's less than a certain percentage, does it go to an evaluator for a final check? Do you have everything going to an evaluator for a final check at the start? All sorts of guardrails need to be put in place. But fundamentally, this is auto QA. And as you work through process by process and implement that, you're driving up your coverage. Absolutely, driving up that coverage. And now if I look at another scenario, which actually increases the effort on the workload. So you need to balance this out between how do I increase coverage? Okay, auto QA and AI is dealing with that and it's giving me more value with less effort on the QA evaluators. But auto flag.
Before you go on, I'm curious. So
Yeah.
is the auto QA, you've trained the model, you set up the guardrails, and then is it essentially reading through transcripts, or how does it go about doing that? How does it go about like knowing satisfaction was there or things were achieved?
Yeah, very good. So so see, this is if I go back one then to incoming web chat. So this is a web chat where it's got the assessments. So those let's say there was 10 questions in this assessment for web chats. It's looking at 200 plus of those that have happened before. Where did the evaluator score positive? Where did it score negative? Where did it actually say, like, it may not be yes or no, maybe somewhat. So where did they say somewhat? And it learns why the manual evaluator, why did they said yes, no, somewhat, or whatever that scale may be. So it needs that information. And you're talking about a couple of hundred, 200 plus. It needs to learn that to understand. And then it can, it's basically going through that script. It ingests that script into the AI model, runs it, has an algorithm built up based on the learnings, and it applies that, and it then figures out what the scores are. That's called predictive AI. It's quite smart, but it needs a model to learn from. You build up the model. So yeah, that's how it joins. And then auto flag is using the exact same principle, but it works a slightly different way. And what you're doing here is, well, look, I'm happy with my 5% that I do with the manual evaluators, because I got to keep some sort of, I want to keep that human element looking at those assessments. But on the other 95%, let's take 45%. Let's stay with that 50% coverage rule. For the other 45%, I want the system to go out and look. I'm seeking to find any red flags. So basically any low scores that it'll run through the model. And again, the auto flag needs to learn the model, and build up over time. But it's now looking for red flags. And when it spots a red flag, you'll see it tells you why it's got a concern for this case, and it starts the manual evaluation. So this feature will actually increase your evaluator workload. I could be using a combination of manual evaluators. I might do 50% of it with auto QA, and I might do another 50% with auto flag, and all of a sudden I've got 100% coverage. But we actually see, and I'll move to another screen here. We actually see this is probably the world it's going to live in, which is for different scenarios. So we've got incoming emails here where, say, 3% is being done. 10% is being done by manual assessments, and 39% is being covered by auto QA. And another scenario might have manual, auto QA, and auto flag. So we see it as a mix. What we don't recommend, you should never have auto flag 100% on any assessment, because it'll only go and look for bad scores. your agents will only ever receive poor scores, and everybody thinks it's a doom and gloom scenario, whether you've actually trained the model to go find me some red flags, you know. So again, you want the manual evaluator there. You might turn one of these processes, very likely you might say, see incoming emails. I'm kind of confident in the scores now. I'm just going to go auto QA everywhere on incoming emails. So auto QA 100%. And by the way, I'm gonna spot check. I'm gonna do manual check the checker on QA. So the person starts checking QA, does a 1% spot check, something like that. So that's how we see it evolving. But the mix is very important, and how a customer decides how that should be built it's in their data side. It's in and we've all sorts of techniques where you can shadow the AI. AI can shadow assessments, so it can shadow run scores, and you can check versus manual evaluators. So we've all sorts of neat techniques there to help with the onboarding of that and make sure it lands with your agents. Yeah, so great. So that was a whistle-stop tour of the 6 levels of maturity. Just brought you through that as quick as I could, providing as much information as I could in that fashion. But yeah, that's so. How do we go from unstructured assessments all the way through to assisted AI? There you go. So, I'm going to hand back to you, Mackenzie.
Sure thing, Neil. Let's dive into some questions. I know we've got a number here that came through. I really enjoyed you walking us through those 6 steps. I think that really made it clear. So this is great. Okay, so first question, let's hit this. Is somebody asked, our QA system is currently outside of Salesforce, but all our customer data is inside Salesforce. Can you advise me on how some of the benefits for moving QA inside Salesforce would be? Or how it helps the business case?
Yes, that comes across quite a lot on our desks. So yeah, I mean, there's the top 3 elements there. Number 1 is security. So you're living in Salesforce for your customer data. You may go to your QA system, and that's separate. There's probably some way of an integration piece, but typically you're logging into 2 different systems there. Bringing it all into Salesforce, security, IT really like that. You're working in one area. You've got permissions and how all of that is controlled. So that one security model is a big advantage. Number 2, which is incredibly beneficial from a business case perspective on the management side of things, more so than IT, would be reporting. So if you're bringing your metrics out of Salesforce, CSAT scores, NPS, quality scores, let's say your quality scores are coming from that external system, and you're trying to join all that data together and get insights specific in a specific area, that's quite difficult to do. Now all the data is living in Salesforce. They have full access to that data, and the reporting is quite beneficial. Well, we've seen a lot of people moving to the Salesforce environment for that reason. So if the data is there and the QA is outside, moving into the Salesforce world and having it all in there and reporting is hugely beneficial. And the third piece, which comes from the agent perspective, that third piece is look and feel, ease of use. These guys are living inside Salesforce every day, and the managers. And if they're switching out into another tech to see certain things or access certain reports or the gamification or whatever that might be, again, you're switching them, moving into 2 different systems. They're so used to Salesforce training new employees, so you're just bringing them through Salesforce and training them up in the tech inside Salesforce. And that's a huge benefit from the agent side. So from IT, from the management perspective, the business management side, and from the agent perspective, they're the 3 different dimensions that we see and help customers with on their business case.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, you've got an existing customer who's tuned in here, Neil, and they have asked, I'm an existing Leaftree customer. What do I need to do to start using the upsell feature?
Very good. Very quickly, that's in our enterprise edition of our Leaftree Optimize app. So they can reach out to us after the call, and we can help them be enabled with that. Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Okay, I've got a question here from Saad, sorry. What's one practical first step you'd recommend for a contact center just starting at stage 1 to accelerate toward AI readiness this year?
Okay, very good. So, yeah, I mean, the number one stage then is to bring it into a structured system, which is the CX quality assurance solution, such as Linktree Optimized. Obviously, there's others there. We live in the Salesforce space, and I can only really talk to how we approach it with customers. So, if you want to move from that and get AI ready, how does that work in our world? The more you bring it into the tech. So let's just assume you're in spreadsheets. I can't determine whether they are or not, but let's say they're in spreadsheets. Bring it into a text CX QA solution that's structured assessments. But inside your structured assessments, what do we look for? We look for when the manual assessments are running, are they providing feedback as opposed to just providing an answer to the assessment question? Do they actually provide comments on that as well to help with the feedback? That really helps AI in the future. Is there question, hints, and tips? That also helps. Do they run QA calibration? That also helps the AI model. And process documentation is something we'll ingest as well to help inform the model. So there are certain things. And then what we're looking for, I mentioned earlier on, but we're looking for, over volume. So let's say, and pick one area. So let's just start. So we'd say emails, support, they're coming into Salesforce. We're going to do 200 assessments of them in the first quarter. Then in the second quarter, we're going to turn on AI and get AI to start tweaking and learning on that. And then we look into the following quarter into where we start. Then we start prioritizing the other assessments to move in AI. So you can move from that mode to that AI mode in the space of 2 quarters is how we would see that.
Okay. So pretty quick, considering how much data it's taking in as well. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I've got a question here from Jamie Shu. They're asking, is the coaching a manual creation or a suggestion based off of an event that AI notices? Are they system generated?
Yes. So that recommended learning actions feature, we're just focusing on that. How I presented that, there is trend analysis there, but I can't call that artificial intelligence. So that's baked into our core product. So it's system generated is the answer, and we there's a way of setting that up where it basically polls and spots trends, and surfaces that up. So it's quite neat. It's a very good feature, but it is system generated. Now on our previous webinar that we ran with you guys, that was actually the final thought on the previous. Is that's where you actually see it moving to. So you think about knowledge base systems. Where we can join that, we're dealing with customers where they've got the learning teams and they've got the quality teams together, working typically for the same leader in the business, and they are working together to solve both that. So let's track quality and let's improve them with learning. So what if we were to take those knowledge bases and join them? So that is absolutely on our roadmap. That is the future. And it really would be the recommended learning action feature AI enabled. So it's taking what we have today and AI enabling that. So it's absolutely on our radar. It's coming up quite a bit.
Exciting. Always like to hear what's coming down the pipeline, Well, Neil, I know we wanted to keep this sort of, full of great information, not necessarily go right to the end of the hour. So any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with here before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, I mean, there's the one big piece, and I mentioned it at the very start, was around this year, 2026, where enterprise and AI come together and it's, tangible results. And people are starting to question the ROI from AI. So how do you drive those tangible results? I think you've got to be really specific with the use cases. This is how we approach it. We've been working on this for 24 months or so, but being very specific about the use case that we solve. And to me, that's how you drive the real ROI with AI. It's the really tangible business cases that can help the enterprise really streamline their operations and make it better. And I believe that's the path we're on. Fantastic.
Well, Neil, absolute pleasure. Great to learn from you and hear from you today. And I look forward to what comes next. So hopefully we'll get to do this again not too far down the line.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
My pleasure. Take good care. Alrighty, everyone, we are going to wrap things up here in the last couple minutes, but I do want to remind you all of the Docs tab. There is both the slide deck there that you experienced with Neil in PDF. So if you want to take that, save it for yourself, for your team, share it with an industry colleague, you've got it there, that assurance maturity model, which is great. And then if you do want to get going, you're not so patient, you want to try this out for yourself, well, I highly suggest booking a demo in there. Check it out. That is a great way to get started, learn a bit more, try it out for yourself, see if it's a good fit for you or your organization. So don't sleep on those awesome resources. We are going to be opening up a quick survey here. So this is just for us here at SmartBrief to get a sense of how did this webinar land for you? Was this the experience you were expecting, the information you thought you'd hear and see? How's the platform? How did it come across? So that'll be open where the chat docs Q&A tab have been. And that is just essentially for us to keep improving, making sure we are putting up top quality webinars and evolving with your feedback. So we appreciate that a lot. Finally, we are going to be giving away our gift card in just a quick second. So if you've been hanging out, you're excited, you're hopeful, you got fingers crossed, well, the wait is over. And our winner of today's $250 Amazon gift card is Chastity Brown from Oklahoma. So Chastity, big congrats. We're going to be reaching out, letting you know how you can claim that prize right after today's session. And with that, I just want to give a quick round of thank yous to everybody. So again, thank you to Salesforce and Leaptree for making today possible. Thank you to Neil for sharing his expertise with us and his time. And thank you to all of you out there in the audience for being here, asking some great questions and taking time out of your busy days to be here and learn something new. Hopefully you found this useful, that you're feeling lit up, excited, and you're going to walk out of here and make some next steps with some new information in hand. So that's awesome. With that, if you want to check out any other upcoming webinars, you can go to events.smartbrief.com or check out the QR code up on your screen now for the full calendar of what we've got coming down the pipeline. But until our next webinar together, I'm going to wish you all a fantastic rest of your days and say farewell, everybody.